My name is Diana Chun, and this is the story of how desperation led me to marry a stranger, and how that stranger changed everything I thought I knew about love, sacrifice, and justice. Chapter 1. The weight of desperation. I was 28 years old when my world collapsed. My father, Marcus, had always been my hero, a kind man who worked 2 jobs to give me opportunities he never had. When the diagnosis came, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. The doctors were clear. Without experimental treatment, he had months. With it, maybe a year or more. The cost? $300,000. Money we didn't have. Money I couldn't imagine ever having. I worked as a graphic designer at a small firm in Chicago. My savings account held barely $8,000. I took out loans, started a fundraising page, worked freelance jobs until 3 in the morning. Nothing came close to what we needed. That's when my father's nurse, Patricia, mentioned something that sounded impossible. "There's a man," she said quietly one evening after my father had fallen asleep. "Mr. Harrison Whitmore. He's 92, very wealthy, and very ill. He's looking for someone to marry him. His family cut him off years ago, and he wants to leave his estate to someone deserving rather than let it go to the state." I stared at her. That can't be real." "It is," Patricia said gently. "I've worked with his private care team. He's a good man, Diana. Lonely. He just wants companionship for whatever time he has left. And in return, he'll take care of your father's treatment. All of it." The proposal felt surreal. Marry a dying stranger to save my father's life. What kind of choice was that? But when I looked at my father, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks thanks to pain medication we could barely afford, I knew there was only one choice I could make. Chapter 2. The arrangement. I met Harrison Whitmore on a grey Tuesday afternoon. His estate was in Lake Forest, a mansion that spoke of old money and forgotten grandeur. Patricia accompanied me, her presence a small comfort. The man I met was frail, his body diminished by age and illness, but his eyes were sharp, intelligent, kind. He sat in a wheelchair by a massive window overlooking gardens that had seen better days. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice thin but warm. "Patricia has told me about your situation. I'm very sorry about your father." "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. Harrison, please." He smiled gently. "I imagine this must seem very strange to you. An old man's final act of rebellion." Perhaps. I sat down across from him. "I need to understand. Why me? Why this?" He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the gardens. "I made many mistakes in my life, Diana. I prioritized the wrong things: business over family, pride over love. My children haven't spoken to me in 15 years. I have millions of dollars and no one to share them with. When I die, everything goes to distant relatives who never knew me, or it disappears into legal effies and state coffers." He turned to look at me. "Patricia told me about you. About your father. About how hard you're working to save him. That kind of love. I wish I'd understood its value earlier in life. Let me do something good with what I have left. Let me help you save your father. And in return, just keep an old man company for a little while. That's all I ask." The arrangement was formalized within a week. A quiet civil ceremony with Patricia and Harrison's lawyer as witnesses. I wore a simple cream dress. Harrison wore a suit that hung loose on his diminished frame. As we signed the papers, he patted my hand. "Thank you for doing this, Diana. For humoring an old man's wish not to die alone." I felt tears in my eyes. "Thank you for saving my father." Chapter 3. The wedding night. Harrison insisted we maintain appearances. "I have household staff," he explained. "They don't need to know all the details of our arrangement. There's a master suite. We can maintain separate rooms within it if you prefer, but it should appear we share the space." I agreed. It seemed a small price to pay. My father's treatment began immediately. The relief I felt watching him receive the care he needed was overwhelming. For the first time in months, I could breathe. On our wedding night, I helped Harrison to the master suite. The room was beautiful, elegant, and timeless, with furniture that had probably been there for decades. Patricia had already arranged for a hospital bed to be set up in the adjoining sitting room, where Harrison would actually sleep. "I'll just get you settled," I said, helping him toward the sitting room. "Wait," Harrison said. Would you mind just sitting with me for a few minutes? I find the evenings difficult sometimes." "The loneliness, of course." We sat together in the main bedroom, him in his wheelchair, me in a chair I pulled close. He told me stories about his life, about building his manufacturing company from nothing, about traveling the world, about the wife he'd loved and lost. 30 years ago. That's when things fell apart with my children, he said quietly. After Elizabeth died, I threw myself into work, pushed them away. By the time I realized what I'd done, the damage was too deep. It's never too late, I said gently. Maybe, perhaps, he said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. After an hour, he grew tired. I helped him to his hospital bed, made sure he was comfortable. As I turned to leave, he caught my hand. Thank you, Diana, for your kindness. It means more than you know. I squeezed his hand gently. Sleep well, Harrison. I changed into pajamas and climbed into the large bed alone, feeling the strangeness of the situation wash over me. I'd married a man I'd just met. I was living in a mansion. My father was getting the treatment he needed. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt unsettled in a way I couldn't name. I was drifting towards sleep when I heard something. A sound from the sitting room. I got up, concerned Harrison might have fallen. But when I opened the door, I froze. Harrison was standing, not in his wheelchair, but standing straight and strong, his back to me. He was removing something from his face, a mask, a realistic latex mask that made him look older, frailer. When he turned around, I gasped. The man facing me was perhaps in his early 50s, handsome, with silver threading through dark hair. His eyes, those sharp, intelligent eyes, were the same, but everything else was different. Hello, Diana, he said, his voice deeper, stronger than before. I suppose we should talk. Chapter 4. The truth I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. Please, he said, holding up his hands. Let me explain. I know this looks bad, very bad, but I need you to understand. You lied to me, I whispered. You are not lying. You are not 92. This was all. What? Some kind of sick game? No. He stepped toward me, and I stepped back. Pain flashed across his face. Diana, please. I know I deceived you about my age and my health, but everything else was true. My name is Harrison Whitmore. That company, this estate, the money, it's all real. And your father's treatment, that's all real too. I would never take that away from him, regardless of what happens between us. What happens between us? I felt anger replacing shock. There is no us. This marriage is based on lies. Yes, he said quietly. It is, and I'm sorry for that. But there are reasons, Diana. Important reasons that I'm asking you to let me explain. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I found myself saying, talk fast. He gestured to the sitting room. Please, sit down. This is going to sound insane, but I swear to you, every word is true. We sat, me on the edge of a chair, ready to bolt, him keeping distance between us. 5 years ago, Harrison began. My company was thriving. I had everything: success, money, respect. I'd never married, never had children. My work was my life. And then I met someone. Her name was Vivian. His voice grew harder. Vivian was beautiful, charming, 30 years old. She pursued me relentlessly. I was flattered. I was 51, and this stunning woman seemed genuinely interested in me. We had a whirlwind romance. I proposed after 6 months. I thought I'd finally found what I'd been missing. He paused, pain evident in his eyes. 2 weeks before our wedding, my business partner, Marcus Townsend, my best friend for 25 years, came to me with evidence. Vivian was having an affair with his son, David. They'd been together the entire time. She was using me for my money, planning to marry me, and then slowly poison me. They had it all worked out. She'd inherit everything. Then she and David would live happily ever after on my fortune. I felt cold. That's attempted murder. Yes. I went to the police, but the evidence was circumstantial. Text messages that could be interpreted different ways. No actual poison. No direct threats. Without more, they couldn't prosecute. And Vivian, when confronted, didn't deny it. She laughed at me, told me I was a fool, that men like me deserved to be taken advantage of. Then she vanished. David too. They'd planned for the possibility of being caught. He leaned forward, his expression intense. For 5 years, I've been trying to find them. They're good at hiding, changing identities, moving around. But I finally tracked them to Chicago 6 months ago. They're running the same con, but smarter now. Vivian targets wealthy men, manipulates them, and if marriage doesn't work, they've moved to blackmail, extortion, fraud. They've hurt a lot of people, Diana. Ruined lives. What does this have to do with me? I asked, though pieces were starting to fit together in my mind. I needed evidence that would hold up in court. I needed to get close to their operation without them recognizing me. So I created Harrison Whitmore, the elderly millionaire. I wore the mask, used a wheelchair, changed my voice. I created a profile that would attract Vivian's attention: wealthy, isolated, vulnerable. He stood, pacing now. But then I learned about you, Diana. Patricia, she's actually an investigator I hired, told me about your situation. About your father. About how you were drowning in desperation. And I realized Vivian might make a move on you before I could trap her. What? Why me? Your father worked with Marcus Townsend 30 years ago. He was an engineer on one of our early projects. Vivian knows this. She's been investigating anyone with any connection to me or Marcus, trying to find leverage or information. When she learned about your father's illness and your financial desperation, she saw an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Harrison looked at me with genuine sympathy. To use you as bait. To lure me out of hiding. She's been following you, Diana. She planned to approach you, pretend to be a friend, gain your trust. Then she'd offer to help connect you with a wealthy man who might assist with your father's treatment. That man would be someone in her network, someone they control. They'd make promises, build your hope, and then when you were desperate enough, they'd demand something in return. Information about your father's past work with Marcus, access to old files, anything that might lead them to me. I felt sick. You're telling me I was already a target? Yes. But I intervened first. I offered you the real help you needed, and in doing so, I protected you from them. The marriage also serves another purpose. It puts you under my protection legally. Vivian can't touch you now without revealing herself, so I'm what? Bait? A pawn in your revenge scheme? No. He knelt in front of my chair, careful not to touch me. No, Diana. I helped you because you needed help. Your father's treatment is guaranteed, no matter what. I've set up a trust that ensures it continues for as long as necessary. You could walk away right now, and he'd still receive every dollar of care he needs. That's not conditional on anything. Then why go through with the marriage? Why the deception? Because he hesitated. Because I hoped that if we were legally married, I could eventually tell you the truth and ask for your help. Vivian is closing in. She knows I'm somewhere in Chicago. If I can draw her out, if I can get her to reveal herself and her crimes, I can finally end this. But I needed time to set everything up. I needed to establish this identity she'd believe in. I stood, needing space. So what now? What exactly are you asking me to do? Harrison stood as well. I'm asking you to trust me. I know I haven't earned that. Not after lying to you. But I'm asking anyway. Continue this marriage, at least publicly. Help me maintain the illusion of Harrison, the elderly millionaire. And when Vivian makes her move, because she will help me catch her. And if I say no, then I'll have our marriage quietly annulled. Your father's treatment continues as promised. You walk away with no obligations. I'll find another way to catch Vivian, though it will be harder. I looked at this stranger who'd saved my father's life, who'd lied to me about everything, who was now asking me to be part of some elaborate scheme I barely understood. I need time, I said finally. I need time to think, of course. Take all the time you need. Chapter 5. Choices and Consequences. Spent 3 days barely speaking to Harrison. He maintained the elderly persona around the staff, but dropped it when we were alone. I learned his real age was 56. I learned he'd built his company from nothing, just as he'd said, though earlier than he'd implied. I learned about the people Vivian and David had hurt: elderly widows, lonely divorcees, vulnerable men and women who'd lost life savings or worse. I visited my father every day, watching him grow stronger. Seeing hope return to his eyes made my decision both easier and harder. On the 4th night, I found Harrison, the real Harrison, sitting in the garden. It was late spring, and the roses were blooming. I'll help you, I said. He turned, surprise and relief warring on his face. Diana, but we have rules, I interrupted. First, no more lies. About anything. Second, my father's safety comes first, always. Third, when this is over, we annul the marriage cleanly. No complications. Agreed. All of it. And one more thing. You explain everything to me. Every step of your plan. I'm not going into this blind, of course. Over the next 2 weeks, Harrison taught me everything. How Vivian operated. What to look for. How to protect myself. He showed me pictures of her, a beautiful woman with auburn hair and green eyes that looked kind until you really studied them. He showed me pictures of David, handsome, charming, cold. They usually work charity events, Harrison explained. Galas, fundraisers, places where wealthy people gather. Vivian will have changed her appearance, but her patterns remain the same. She finds a target, studies them, then manufactures a meeting that seems like fate. The plan was simple. We would attend the Chicago Art Institute Summer Gala, a major event that Vivian and David frequently worked. Harrison would appear as himself. No mask, younger and healthy. I would be his wife, there to support a major donation he was making. The shock of seeing him alive and well, with a wife, would force Vivian into a mistake. She'll be angry, Harrison said. Angry that I outsmarted her, that I'm still alive and thriving. Angry people make mistakes. The night of the gala, I wore a blue evening gown that Harrison had insisted on buying me. You need to look the part, he'd said. Confident, secure, happy. Everything Vivian tried to take from me. As we entered the museum, Harrison took my arm. Thank you for doing this, he said quietly. And Diana, I want you to know, regardless of how tonight goes, you've helped me. Remember something important. What's that? That not everyone is like Vivian. That kindness and courage still exist in the world. Your love for your father, your willingness to sacrifice for him. It reminded me why I'm doing this. To protect people like you. The gala was crowded, full of Chicago's elite. We mingled, Harrison playing the role of successful businessman perfectly. I found myself actually enjoying it. His subtle humor and intelligent conversation making the evening less stressful than I'd expected. And then I saw her. She was a blonde now, but those green eyes were unmistakable. She was across the room, talking to an elderly man with animation, her hand on his arm. Predatory, calculating. Harrison, I murmured. I see her, he said, his voice tight. And she's seen us. Look, Vivian's eyes had found us. I watched emotions flash across her face, shock, disbelief, rage, then a mask of pleasant neutrality. She excused herself from the elderly man and began moving through the crowd. Toward us. What do we do? I whispered. We act like the happy couple we're pretending to be, Harrison said, pulling me closer. Remember, we're in love. We're fortunate. We're everything she tried to destroy. Vivian approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Harrison Whitmore, she said, her voice warm and surprised. What a small world. I wasn't sure it was you at first. You look well. Very well. Vivian, Harrison's voice was cold. I wish I could say it's good to see you. Her smile sharpened. Come now. No hard feelings, surely? That was all such a misunderstanding. Attempted murder is a misunderstanding. Drama was always your weakness. She turned to me, assessing. And who is this? My wife. Diana, Harrison said, his arm around my waist. Diana. This is Vivian Reynolds. Or is it another name now? Still Reynolds, Vivian said smoothly. I'm so happy you found someone, Harrison. Truly. After our confusion, I worried you'd close yourself off from love. The only confusion, I said, surprising myself, was you thinking you'd get away with it. Vivian's eyes went cold. Careful, dear. You don't know what you're involved in. I know exactly what I'm involved in, I said. I know who you are and what you do. And I know you're not getting away with it anymore. For just a moment, Vivian's mask slipped. I saw pure rage in those green eyes. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she said quietly. Harrison may have been clever enough to avoid me, but you're just a girl playing dress up in a world you don't understand. It would be so easy to what? A new voice said. Threaten her. Here, in front of everyone. A man in a police uniform had approached. Behind him, several plainclothes officers were positioning themselves around the room. Detective Morrison, Harrison said. Thank you for coming. Vivian's expression shifted rapidly. I don't know what game you're playing, Harrison, but no game, the detective said. Vivian Reynolds. David Townsend, he nodded to a man I had noticed before, standing frozen near the exit, who were both under arrest for fraud, attempted extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As the detective continued reading their rights, Vivian looked at Harrison with pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. Yes, Harrison said quietly. It is. They were led away in handcuffs. The gala erupted in whispers and speculation. Harrison and I gave brief statements to the police, then slipped away into the night. Epilogue. Unexpected endings. The case against Vivian and David was airtight. Harrison's years of investigation, combined with the evidence gathered at the gala, including Vivian's threat to me, recorded by the wire I'd been wearing, sealed their fate. They were sentenced to 15 and 20 years, respectively. My father's health improved dramatically. The experimental treatment worked better than anyone hoped. Within 6 months, his cancer was in remission. Within a year, his doctors were cautiously optimistic about his long-term prognosis. Harrison and I went through with the annulment as agreed. But something unexpected had happened during those months of pretending to be married. We'd become friends. Real friends. I'm thinking of retiring, Harrison told me one evening, 6 months after the trial. We were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant we'd discovered together. Selling the company. Taking some time to figure out what actually makes me happy. That sounds wise, I said. I was thinking. He hesitated. I was wondering if you'd like to help me with something. I want to start a foundation to help families dealing with catastrophic medical expenses. People like you and your father. I have the money and the business experience, but I need someone who understands what it's like to be on the other side. Someone compassionate and smart and brave. I smiled. Is this a job offer? It's an opportunity for both of us, maybe, to turn something terrible into something good. I thought about it, about the desperation I'd felt, about the impossible choices, about how Harrison's help, complicated and problematic as it had been, had saved my father's life. Yes, I said. I'd like that. The foundation launched a year later. We helped hundreds of families. My father, fully recovered, volunteered with us, sharing his story to give others hope. And Harrison and I, we remained friends. Close friends. Maybe someday, something more. But there was no rush. We both learned that the best things in life can't be forced or faked. They have to grow naturally, built on a foundation of honesty and trust. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that wedding night, about the mask coming off, about the moment my life split into before and after. I'd married a stranger to save my father. I'd been lied to, used as bait, pulled into a dangerous scheme I never asked for. But I'd also discovered my own strength. I'd helped bring criminals to justice. I'd found purpose and friendship in unexpected places. And I'd learned that sometimes the worst moments of our lives led us exactly where we need to be. My name is Diana Chern. This is my story. And unlike the fairy tales, it doesn't end with a wedding. It begins with one.